Thank you, Candy, for that fabulous rendition of one of my favorite songs, and so many of us who find ourselves so moved. And of course, in answer to the question that both Karen and Oscar posed at the very beginning, what does it look like? How do we know what it's going to look like? How do we do that? Well, we start by imagining it. We start by imagining something different than the way it's been in our own lives and in the life of our collective. And I hope that you've been reading our book of the month, The Not So Big Life, because let me just tell you, she has been kicking my butt and really inviting us into the ability to look clearly at our own lives. And towards the end of the book, she talks about how important it is to develop the observer, the watcher, she calls it. And the watcher is the person within us, the ability that we have to notice what we're doing. And the watcher gets to see not only what we're doing, but what motivates it, what's behind it. And as we talked about a few weeks ago, I think many of us are finding in this time of sheltering in place and staying at home that we have been confronted in a pretty big way with some of those old tapes, those old behaviors, those old ways of being in the world. We haven't been able to be distracted from them. And that's really good news. And so we get to watch the news and we get to see the collective unconscious play out before our very eyes. And we're not distracted from it because it's over and over and over again. So the first thing we have to do is we have to notice, we have to watch, we have to see what's going on. And then we have to actually imagine it differently. So where I'm starting in my own life and imagining it differently is I'm really paying attention to the priorities and values that are being revealed to me about the things that I wish I were doing, want to do, find myself doing that really reinforce who I want to be and how I want to be in the world. And I'm noticing those things that I do, think, say, engage in, or reactions that I have that are not who I want to be and how I want to be in the world. Do you see? We have a golden opportunity. All of this is being revealed to us. Our own thinking, if we're willing to watch and really pay attention, all of that is being revealed to us. And it is in the revelation, right? They say awareness is half the battle. It is, of course, only half the battle, but it is the first half to begin to see these things and then imagine it differently. We must begin to imagine being the people we want to be, showing up as love, showing up serving, showing up centered, grounded. And yes, these are all aspirations. And we all know that when we aspire to being the best that we can be, we are going to fall down because we haven't turned pink and transcended yet, have we? But that doesn't make the aspiration wrong. It doesn't mean we're lying. It doesn't mean we're not being truthful. It means that we have a vision for ourselves. We have a vision of what's possible. What does it mean to be a spiritual being, to having a human experience? What does it mean to be love? What does it mean to engage life from a centered, universal perspective? As we imagine being that, that vision is pulling us. And our watcher will notice when we're being it and when we're not. Without shame or blame, getting to see when we're actually not being that aspiration. Does not by any means make the aspiration inappropriate. It is the vision that pulls us. Really, Michael Beckwith says, pain pushes until vision pulls. Don't you think pain is pushed enough? Really, I'm over being pushed by pain. Let's be pulled by vision. And how we get to our vision is we begin to imagine. We begin to imagine all the things that we're discovering about ourselves, all the ways in which we'd like to be. We begin to imagine actually being it. We know from many studies that our brain does not know the difference between an imagined and real experience. Can I say that again? I know you've heard this, but let me remind you that our brain does not know the difference between a real and an imagined experience. Now, I don't mean an imaginary conversation with someone that you wish you would have done differently, or that you wish you could just give them a piece of your mind. Not that kind of an imaginative thing, but an embodied experience of imagining yourself as who you desire to be. Imagining yourself as a spiritual being, as a being of light. That's actually the truth, not the false beliefs of littleness or not enoughness or I can't do it or I don't know how. But to truly begin to imagine, and in that imagining, embrace the possibility, embracing it on the inside, that you are a being of love and light, that you are the universe making itself known, making itself manifest in the world, and getting to experience the experience of creating, of expressing, of being love, of creating a life. So it begins with that process of starting to live into that possibility. A great example that I think that we have all experienced in the last few months, where we've been in the midst of this chaos and disruption. How many of us, now be honest, how many of us have been technology avoidant, technology disparaging? I'm never going to do that. I will never take we actually have people in in our community have said, "Oh, I'm never going to take a class on Zoom. Why would I want to do that?" Well, we've sort of had to, haven't we? We've had to do our classes and our circles and our prayer groups and our Sunday celebration and everything on Zoom. And we've all gone kicking and screaming, haven't we? But we've gone, and we've learned how to do it. One of the beauties of chaos and disruption and the possibility of the creative opportunity that's available in this kind of a period of time is that we leapfrog through countless months and possibly years that it might have taken all of us to become more available to each other through technology than we have in the last 8 weeks. That's an extraordinary thing. I bet you couldn't have imagined that. How many of us could have imagined that the streets of our major cities would have been emptied? And yet, it's happened. Those kinds of disruptions, if we can watch them, if we can activate our observer, we begin to see that things are possible that we didn't realize were possible before. And that we can leapfrog over years of letting go of old beliefs and trying to release our smallness and trying to release and get over the trauma. We can leap over all of that and go for the gold, which is to aspire to be who we say we want to be, to aspire to live in this remodeled life that we've been reading about all month. I'll never forget so let me just tell you a little story. Actually, it's 2 or 3 places in it that seem really appropriate. In 1984, John Randolph Price created the World Peace Event, if you will recall. It's still going on in many places today. And it was set for noon Greenwich Mean Time. Well, I was living in Seattle at the time. That was 4 a.m. in the morning. On December 31st, 1984, millions of people were invited to get together to pray for peace, all at the same time, all over the world. We did not have the benefit of technology. And so our community in Renton, Washington, we raised tens of thousands of dollars so that we could rent the Kingdom, the stadium, and bring people there. We were not the creators of the entire event. We were just very, very, very involved. And we had thousands of people come out at 4 a.m. in the morning to pray and meditate and declare for peace at the same time that millions of people were doing it in stadiums all over the world. Between 84 and 89, my mother went to Russia with Friendship Force. She went to Russia to meet Russian families and to sit at the table and have coffee and meals with Russian women to discover that, they weren't actually all that different than we are, despite the hoopla of the Cold War, despite the fear around the Cold War. And I'll never forget being in my cabin in the woods. In 1989, my mother was there, and when we heard that the Berlin Wall came down, and she said, never in my lifetime would I believe that I would see my own home country come to that place where the Berlin Wall would come down. And you may not know the story, but the Berlin Wall came down by accident. There had been interesting talks that had come out of all of this peace work over countless years, all that work that was being done on the subconscious belief systems that people were carrying about the other. All of that work. And it was having interesting conversations at the level of government and wherever all that was happening. And one day, an announcer on the eastern side of the wall said, oh my God, they've just declared, it's over. The Cold War is over and the wall's coming down. He declared that on the radio. People heard that on the radio. They rushed to the wall and began taking it apart. Except that then the guy went and he read the actual news story that had come across that he was supposed to say. And that's not what that news story said. It wasn't that the Cold War is over. It was that the Cold War was in the process of being talked about. Perhaps one day the wall could come down. With that one accident, the wall was down in 2 days. That wall came down. My mother said, never in her lifetime. And yet what did she do? She went to Russia 4 times during that period of time. What did we do? We prayed over and over and over again every year at 4 a.m. in the morning all around the world for peace, trying to imagine what that would look like, not knowing the how, not knowing how it will happen, but staying convinced that what it will look like is different than it was looking like in the moment. That's what we have the opportunity to do in creating this new normal, to allow our own imagination of a possible world that works for everyone, lives that work for us, to so move in our being, in our experienced, embodied inner life, that we're used in mysterious ways, in miraculous ways, in magical ways, in ways that we can't even consider how it will come about, if we will stay committed to what we imagine, to what we vision. When we do that, life uses us as instruments. So I invite you to just sing along with us right now as we sing, Use Me. There's a power for good in the universe and we can use it. There's a power for good in the universe and it uses us. Both of those statements are completely true. And we make ourselves available to the inspiration and the intuition that is the truth of that universal presence moving as us in the world, moving as us and through us in the world. And so we can move into this new normal with confidence and with a deep commitment to our aspirations. Even if we don't know how we're going to get there, even if we don't know how we are going to get there, we must be present to being moved in the process of going for that vision. And so we have vision. We have a vision of our own life, what our own life looks like, balanced, healthy, happy, with enough to have the lives that we like, that we do the things we want to do, contribute to the things we want to contribute to, fulfilled and meaningful lives. And that's our vision for all of us collectively, a world that works and lives that work. Centers for Spiritual Living, I think, captures what it might look like in this beautiful statement called our global vision. We do actually have a sense of what it looks like. What we don't know is how we're going to get there. We don't always know what the forms are going to be. But yeah, I think we do actually know what it looks like. The global vision begins with, we envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God, of Spirit, of the one life. We not just only envision that, we actually know that that's the truth. And because we know that, we see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. Isn't that true for each of us? We want to live from that higher state of consciousness and action. So let's start simply speaking that into being, that we do move from that higher place, that we do act out of that higher state of consciousness, that we are inspired, guided, and that we, every moment that we're confronted with that opportunity in our own lives or collectively, that we do actually live from that place. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought, a world where each and every person discovers his or her own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. That, to me, is one of the key ideas, imagining, envisioning humanity awakening to its own magnificence, that we look at each other and see the infinite being expressed, that we look at each and every person and see that radiant being of light, and that we support and empower ourselves and others to be the best and fullest that they can be. No holds barred, nothing standing in the way. That is something that we imagine and can work toward. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. It's not enough just to say we're one because we're all human beings. It's only one because we're all part of the one life. And the inspiration, the impulsion, the indwelling spiritual truths are the things that move us beyond the very things that have gotten us in the position that we are in our own lives. Acquisition, living from the outside in, trying to acquire a life, trying to buy a life, trying to be all of those things because of how we look or what we own or how much money we have or all the things that we do in the world. Do you see, all of that causes us to think it's all of this out here, which ultimately has resulted in the tremendous inequity that we see and what we see happening in our environment. But when spiritual wisdom and guidance and experience is brought to bear, imagine that. Imagine our corporations and our companies and our businesses and our families and as individuals, that we take our deepest and highest spiritual values and priorities and live from those. How will we do that? We'll see. But imagine that we do, and begin speaking that into being. What does it look like? What does it look like to live from this spiritual truth, from this universal perspective, ascending to our own highest potential and dreaming of a humanity awakened? What does it look like? Think in terms of qualities and experiences rather than how or a plan. We can argue about how that has to come about. We can argue about the plan from here till forever, depending on our worldview, where we stand, what we think about it. Those are the places where we get bogged down. But I'm thinking that as we cultivate the ability to imagine the outcome, do you see? The vision pulls. And it pulls all, wherever they are, whoever we are, pulls us all toward that vision in our own lives and in the collective life. We have to say what it is we are truly envisioning, truly imagining, not how are we going to get there. Our global vision goes on. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. Personal responsibility joining with social conscience. Do you see? Imagining that life moves beyond either or. Either we're Republican or we're Democrat. Either we're liberal or conservative. Either we're spiritual or we're atheist. Either we're this or that. Either we're... Where personal responsibility joins with social conscience, do you see? That is a statement of both and. That is a statement that transcends and includes all of us, and includes even all of my own inner differences and all of my own places where I'm not even in congruence with myself. All of that included in a life that works, in a world that works. Where personal responsibility, where I take responsibility not only for my own life, for the fact that I've created the mess in my own life and that I have to create the wholeness that is the truth of my being. I have to create a life that actually expresses that. But I take personal responsibility for how my life engages and impacts people, the planet, education, that the way in which I conduct my business, the places where I do my work, the things that I do with my money, the ways that the activities that I engage in or support. Right? Personal responsibility joining with social conscience reminds us that we're actually one. We're actually part of the whole. Imagine the possibilities when we engage in that way. And when our life collectively is expressing that. What is the quality that brings? The experience that engenders? Well, it's way beyond suffering, and it's way beyond enduring, and it's way beyond surviving. What that means is humanity is thriving. All of humanity. That means everyone is thriving. Thriving in the way in which their own soul is being called to be expressed. Thriving in a life that is spiritually grounded, fully supported, and has the opportunity to express itself. Thriving, not just surviving, not just enduring, and certainly beyond suffering. We envision a world where each and every person has enough food, a home and a sense of belonging, a world of peace and harmony, enfranchisement and justice. We don't have to know how we're going to get there. We don't have to have the plan. The infinite intelligence and wisdom of the universe knows how. But it's the claim that that is our aspiration. No, actually, that's not just our aspiration. That's our demand of ourselves, of each one of us. That's our demand, that we move in the world as if that were not only possible, but we're in fact the direction we're moving in, that is our goal, that is our vision. Let's speak that into being for ourselves and each other. We envision a world in which resources are valued, cared for, and grown, and where there's a generous and continuous sharing of these resources, that we have so moved beyond, what do I need to have? What do I need to get? Let me acquire my life, right? That's why we're reading this book, The Not So Big Life. So often in our spirituality, it's gotten conflated with the consumerism and the American dream that just bigger, better, bigger, 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 more, 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 more. No, it's not about the stuff and the acquiring of stuff. It is about the experience and quality of a meaningful life where we are contributing the gift that we have come here to be, which is the awakened universal presence as an individual, getting to express it as the unique presence that we are, our own very special, diverse, unique way of being love and light in the world. We envision a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. Could we just stop dragging the corpse of our past around? It is the past. Spirit only lives in the here and now. And if we want to envision a future, we have to work through our own forgiveness, forgiving of ourselves and forgiving of others, where this becomes the norm. We stop holding things over each other's heads. We envision a world which has renewed its emphasis on beauty, nature, and love through the resurgence of creativity, art, and aesthetics. You know why this is important? Because this is what we're here to do. We're not here to buy lives. We're not here to, I remember there was a bumper sticker when I was first getting into science of mind, and the bumper sticker said, the one at the end with the most toys wins. Well, you're not going to take it with you, I promise you that. And all those toys have to be cared for. And if you're like me, I get a new toy. Oh, it's great for a while, but what do I need next? I need another new toy, don't I? Because all of that is living on the outside. If only that would be changed, if only I had that, if only that were different, if only those people were different, if only I could control that or fix that or figure that out, then I would be happy. I would be okay. I would know the spiritual truth. No, this is not how it works. These things out here are the creation of our own beliefs and thoughts and experiences of ourselves and who we think we are, who we know ourselves to be. We are here to create. We are here to express. This is the sandbox. And these things out here are the outpicturing. This is the outpicturing of what we believe to be true about ourselves. We want this to change. It has to start here. We have to change here. Remember that, what I said all the way back at the beginning. To imagine that we live the truth of our spiritual being, that we are in fact love and light made manifest. Not in some arrogant way, because so is everybody else. Everybody else is also love and light. So we're not any better than anybody else, but we're also not any worse than anybody else. It's knowing this deep and profound truth, that each one of us is here to express the universe. And we are a place where the infinite love is getting to experience itself and be love in so many unique and individualized ways. And so when we embrace art and creativity and nature, we're moving out of surviving, out of enduring, out of suffering, and into thriving and creating and moving forward in our lives, whether it's to save the planet or whether it's to plant a few bulbs in a garden, raise a child, build a corporation. Each one of those things, an opportunity for our creative expression of who we have come here to be. We envision a world that works for everyone and for all of creation, that works in some form or fashion, that works together. Imagine the possibilities, dream it. Let's dream it together. Let's not just dream it, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it, that's where we're going. I don't care if people think you're Pollyannish or if they're too cynical or skeptical. Oh, that'll never happen. Oh, it'll never happen. Look at what's always been happening. It's always this way. It's always going to be this way. No. When we say it's always going to be this way, we're holding it in place. No, we're going to speak a new reality into being. In our own lives, I am speaking a new reality into being that I have all the time I need to live the express life and the creative life that I choose, to be the minister I want to be, to show up in the way that I want to show up. I have enough time. That's my new story. What's your new story? What's your new story that's going to create your new normal out of this whole experience? And let's collectively have a new story and speak that new story into being over and over and over again, regardless of what anybody else says, regardless of how much they show us that the conditions haven't changed. That is our aspiration, and it is what we imagine, not just with our minds, but with our whole being. And we know that what we imagine to be true, our brain doesn't know any different from a real experience. Will we have to work at it? You bet. Will we stumble and fall and have to pick ourselves back up again? Absolutely. Will our aspirations overreach our practice? Most likely. Will we let the vision pull us? I think yes. Are we up to it? Absolutely. And as Daniel Nahmad says, it is time. Let us bring it on.
This is a dangerous song, by the way. I sing it with trepidation. Ever since I wrote this song, everything has in fact changed in my life. And so if you know it and you feel like singing along, do so at your peril. Bring it on. Everything new. Everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I'm through crying, I'm through waiting, I'm through hoping against all hope. I'm through longing for something gone that'll never return. I think I finally learned to bring it on. You guys feel like singing that with me? Again, careful. Bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I'm through grieving, I'm through dreaming that the life I had is ever coming back. No more wishing on someone else's star that'll never be mine. I think it's time to bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. And I've survived many times before. Broken hearts, slamming doors. I'll be alright, yes I will, once more, just as I did back then. I'm gonna rise again, so bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. So bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new. I know it's gonna be everything